Hello and welcome. My screen name is Covert Muffin, and this is going to be a submission video for Ori and the Blind Forest Definitive Edition Randomizer, with the specific logic mode, Forest Trees Clues in particular. Great. So if you've never seen Ori before, Ori is a 2D Metroidvania platformer. It basically means that as you progress through the game, you end up finding these skill tree locations and you get skills from them. And those skills allow you to get access to new parts of the map. Right? Whether it's destroying blue things or maybe jumping a little bit higher or literally jumping off walls is a skill in this game, right? That you will find. In the randomizer, though, it takes all these static skill locations, like this EXP orb here, and it shuffles them around and redistributes them, right? So normally that's just 25 experience, and that actually ended up turning out to be our first skill of the seed, Glide. Glide's very particular. It's going to make one of the end game areas very, very easy, as well as give us a bit more air retention as we sort of like descend a little bit slower. It's very, very powerful skill later in the seed. Upcoming here, usually this is just experience and boom, instead it was another skill, wall jump, which is actually a very crucial skill. Normally in the vanilla game, it's the first one you get, so you usually forget about it. But this allows me to actually interact with walls. Otherwise, I would not be able to jump off of walls. And so that is very, very nice, having found that early. So here we just found Sign. Sign is not actually randomized. It's just always going to be there. And the main reason for this is it allows me to attack things. Right? So here, now I can destroy this bramble wall, right? And progress on through. And so here are going to be two more pickups that are going to be very early in the seed. And this is going to decide where I go next, right? The next sense of progression that's going to unlock more pickups into the possible set of things I find. And so there I found Wind Restored, which actually allows me to have Glide build me height in certain locations. There'll be like these upward air drafts, right? Cool. And so there I just used a randomizer specific feature known as Alt-R, which just teleports me back to the start location, and there it was again. And this was added into the randomizer because, of course, as speedrunners, we end up finding all sorts of creative ways of finding our way into neat little locations and then getting stuck and such. So we added Alt-R to be able to sort of act as like the link to the past, quit out, and re-entry into a game. So here I'm just going to be doing a little glitch known as Save Anywhere to just save the game after I cross this cutscene trigger. We'll see this again, and I'll explain it more in depth as we progress into the run. You'll be seeing that a lot. But the entire purpose of that is literally just to either enter or skip a cutscene by just saving the game after I cross the trigger. And so as Ori speedrunners, we have all sorts of senses and manners to be able to save the game after we cross a cutscene trigger. But here we're actually in our second area known as Blackroot Burrows, and this is going to have a skill location, right? As I just sort of continue on through and check more pickups, okay? And the skill locations are what make this randomizer so interesting, because the goal mode for this seed in particular is known as Forest Trees, as we mentioned at the start of the video. And what that means is that I must visit all 11 skill locations and activate them before I'm allowed to start and finish the final escape of the game. And this just allows us to add more content and more areas into the game. So what I'm going to be trying to do is clearing out high density areas of pickups as I work to these skill locations, right? In the hopes of finding the next skill that is going to unlock the new area of the map. Right now, I have good air retention and the ability to interact with walls, but I don't actually have anything to destroy things like blue walls or plants, and I don't have enough energy to be able to get to the right side of the map, etc., etc. So I'm looking for that next big skill that's going to allow me to traverse the map more easily, as well as check more pickups. So here we go, the entire shtick with Blackroot Burrows, if you've never played this game casually, is just babysitting this orb over to an area, right? And we're going to turn this orb into a pedestal, but we're actually going to do something a little creative. So here's going to be another Save Anywhere trick. What I'm going to do is drop a save, open the ability menu, and then press a really specific bind. And this is going to allow me to gain control of Ori while the ability menu is open. Then leveling up an ability will save the game, right? So I wait for a very specific trigger in the cutscene to save the game, And voila, I have allowed myself to be able to enter into the cutscene. And so this use of being able to move around with the ability menu is not normal. And so we are going to be using that all over the place to be able to just save the game. All right, and here it is. Here's our first big skill tree, 1 of 10. It's actually our second skill location we've activated, and we found Charge Flame, which is going to be our next big bit of progression. And Charge Flame allows us to destroy blue structures, and we'll be seeing that in a little bit. I'll point them out as we find it. But first, here we're going to be jumping down, holding that lever, and then saving the game, and then taking a death. What this does is it tricks the game into thinking that the lever is always being held down, and it allows this sliding door up ahead to just always be opening. Then, I'm going to end up farming experience to get an intentional level up here, to get an ability point, so I can do another save anywhere glitch. Then crossing this trigger here, I'm going to save and quit out of the game. So instead of having to run away from this boulder, it actually tricks the boulder into forgetting it is an instant death, big bad boulder. So like normally if I touch the boulder, I die instantaneously. Whoops, okay. But that is not the case anymore because I've glitched it out using a save anywhere. All right, so these crusher blocks are a little finicky sometimes. Walking into the side of them can just cause you to take a death. So here it's important to mention that I am actually sequence breaking the logic right now. The game doesn't actually think I can do this with the set of skills I have. Oh, hey, okay. However, this just allowed me to get a few extra checks on pickups, as well as activate this waypoint location, which I can use to fast travel and save at later in the run. That's going to save me a little bit of time and get me a few extra pickups to check right now. Now, one of those pickups was actually really large. It was Water Vein. Right? So in the randomizer itself, the dungeon keys play an integral role with being able to start and finish a seed very, very quickly on average. And finding them can be one of the most difficult things because they are a singular pickup. So in order to make this more consistent, we added this mode known as clues in order to help us track them down. And after I activate 3 skill locations, starting, sign is not counted in this, but after I find 3 trees and activate them, I am then able to get a clue. And so what it does is it picks one of the 3 random dungeon keys, and then it tells me the area on the map that I will end up finding that dungeon key. And why is this important? Well, Water Vein, the one I just found, gets me access to Ginso, which has one of the skill locations like Charge Flame Tree here. And then Sunstone gets me access to Mount Horu, which has the final escape. So there we go. You'll notice it says 2 out of 10 trees. And so I do not have my first clue yet. And so what I'm hoping for is now that I've already found Water Vein is that it's not going to give me the clue for Water Vein, right? Because I already have Water Vein. I do not need to know it was in Blackroot Burrows. I know I just found it in there. Yeah. But getting access to Sea Flame Tree, I actually used Charge Flame to destroy some blue walls. And I would have not been able to do that unless I had Charge Flame or another skill like Dash, Grenade, or Stomp in very specific scenarios. So here now I just ended up spending some keystones to open up some key doors. Those are just a resource, and so that is going to unlock some additional pickups to check, as well as potentially more areas on the map. And look at that. I have my keystone, and you can sort of see how many keystones I have by looking in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Those are those sort of like silver obelisk type shapes with the small number by them. Cool. So right here, we're in Glades, which is the like starting area of the map, which is a very nice area to full clear. And the reason for this is because it has a high density of pickups in easy to access locations, right? Because when you play the game with the vanilla edition, or the definitive edition, excuse me, when you get a skill, the game wants to open up many pickups as it can in your immediate vicinity. So with Glades, it usually only expects you to have wall jump. And so wall jump just allows us to jump off of walls, nothing really fancy like building a lot of height. And so it's going to put a lot of pickups within your reach. So there I just had to skip one pickup because normally you need something like charge jump or like bash grenade to be able to build the extra height to check it. Then coming over here is Wall Jump Tree. Only has 5 experience. And there's our first clue. Gumon Seal is in Valley, which is on the left-hand side of the map. And that is the clue we were hoping not to get, because Gumon Seal is not normally required to be able to finish out the Forest Trees mode, just simply because there is not a skill location found in Forlorn Ruins, which is what Gumon Seal gets you access to. But that's okay. Still nice to know that it's in Valley. Great. So next up, coming here, I could have Alt-R'd to send myself once again back to the start of the map, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm just going to back up sort of casually by jumping up a wall. And this is because I opened up a 2-key door earlier. Oh yeah, whoops. In order to be able to get to the next area. And this is actually going to be my next sort of line of progression. But here I have a mapstone. Whenever you turn in a mapstone into a pedestal, which there are 9 of across the entire map of Nibel, you actually also get a pickup. And these mapstone turn-ins are known as sequential turn-ins. What that basically means is the first map pedestal I turn into a mapstone into, is always going to give me the mapstone 1 pickup. And then turning in a second mapstone into a different pedestal will give me a second pickup. And so on and so forth. Doesn't actually matter which map pedestal you do in terms of ordering. They're just sequentially ordered. Great. But so in here, this is a really nice pickup dense location. This is like one of my favorite places to check early, right? Because you can think of sort of a probability play for the best probability of finding your next bit of progression, i.e. a skill or maybe some resource like an energy cell would have been really nice to find early, which I have not. Density is going to be your best friend. Easy to access pickups with a high density means that I get the highest amount of pickups per minute. So here I just leveled up an ability which actually makes Charge Flame free. Beforehand it was requiring me to spend half an energy each time. And then up here I'm doing very precise jumps in order to use Charge Flame to destroy one of those petrified plants, which gets me another pickups. Then normally I need the skill Stomp to break this floor to be able to check this pickup. However, this Frankie here, which is like a frog monkey, is actually able to help me break that floor and to check that pickup for me. And that is expected for somebody to be able to know how to do that for finishing out logic. Then coming up here, I'm going to check one more pickup that actually takes a long time to check, and it's a singular pickup. However, I've just been burned by this before, and I think for marathon safety, with being able to guarantee that I would finish under estimate, I will end up checking more of these sort of one-off or far-away pickups that are low density. Here, it was only an ability cell, which is actually very nice because it allows me to do things more, like more save anywhere glitches, like I'm going to do right here to skip this cutscene. As well as allows me to progress up the ability tree. Right, and we haven't really talked much about the ability tree itself, but basically I'm taking the cyan route, or the teal route, because if I end up finding one skill known as Dash, this is going to get me access to both Air Dash, which allows me to build a lot of horizontal speed while I'm mid-air, and Charge Dash, which is going to allow me to use Dash to spend energy to build a lot of height, or it's going to allow me to break blue things, or it's just going to allow me to move ridiculously fast. So we'll see if we end up finding Dash as we progress through the seed, or not, but it's good. And then at the end of the teal or cyan ability tree, if you're familiar with this game, is Triple Jump as well as Ultra Defense. And Ultra Defense is going to be one of the most powerful and potent pickups in the entire Randomizer speedrun, because it's going to basically cut the health requirements for certain sequence breaks down significantly. So even if I'm a little bit starved on health cells, like if I don't find any more health cells for the rest of the run, if I get Ultra Defense, I can still do some late game sequence breaks. Cool. Cool. All right, so now we are in Spider Stack area, which is a smaller area located in a place known as Grove. And yes, okay, great. We found our second energy cell. So I was kind of hoping to find this a little bit earlier so I could do a big speedrun sequence break. But this is nice because this actually buys me a lot of time to sort of explain nuances of the randomizer before we get into the next pickup dense location, which is going to be known as Moon Grotto. But right now we are in Spider Sack area, so you can see why it's called Spider Sack area. There's a giant sack with a bunch of spider sacks on it, and then there are a bunch of spiders all around. But here in Grove, it's a place that actually has a lot of pickups that are gated Metroidvania style. So like it expects me to have things like charge jump, which builds me a lot of height. And so the density in this area for pickups is not great, but having wind restored and charge flame in this area is actually quite nice. So I can check a large number of pickups without too much trouble or backtracking even. So here I'm actually heading towards like the end game area of Grove, which is leading towards Mount Horu, all just to check this one pickup. So normally, once again, I need Stomp to check this. However, I can just bait that Baneling there, because we call them Banelings after the StarCraft 2 unit, the Baneling. However, instead, we can just use them to blow that up, and it ended up being nothing, so I'm just going to quit out and reload in order to save myself a little bit of time. And cool, there is our next skill, which is going to be none other than Grenade. Grenade is very nice to find and a huge relief because there are certain one-off pickups that are kind of like spread throughout the entire map overall that are only unlockable if you have Grenade. And so having Grenade basically ensures that I indeed am going to be able to finish the seed in a fast amount of time without getting messed over, right? Because if a dungeon key I need, right, like Sunstone, which unlocks Mount Horu, the final area, is locked by that one skill, that could be potentially brutal. Very similar to how like A Link to the Past randomizer is kind of notorious for locking you out in terms of progression because of one pickup in a dungeon requiring one item. However, here what we're going to be doing is, in order to get down into Grotto, which is kind of like you can think of it as the lower right portion of the map, which has a high amount of pickup density and a skill location, our next skill location we're going to be going to, I kind of have to come over here to Swamp. So I kind of went up and above Grotto, and then I'm working around in a big loop in order to get access to the dungeon. So here I'm going to save, and then use that save point and resave at it as I cross a cutscene trigger in order to be able to enter this cutscene. So I can use the water vein I found earlier to open up Ginso Tree. We can't actually go into Ginso Tree quite yet and get the skill location, just simply because we're missing one skill, right? If I find either double jump, bash, or charge jump, I will be able to get a lot of height, right? And that's sort of what I'm missing right now. And without that verticality, I'm not going to be able to traverse Ginso Tree quite yet. Cool. There I just found clean water, which is one of the major events. Usually find it after you finish Ginso Tree. And this is a very nice pickup because it's going to cause all poison water on the map to turn into clean water, so it no longer is going to deal damage to me. Great. Then upcoming here, normally I set a save here and try and save again. However, I made a big mistake and I was considering quitting out and reloading, but that would have sent me back about a minute, and I decided that the time loss from having to do this puzzle casually does not lose me a minute of time. So I'm just going to set up for that puzzle by baiting some mortar worm shots, and I'm going to actually use charge flame in order to redirect those shots. There, hitting the side of the rock was not sufficient. The shot has to be a little bit higher, and there we go. Nice, second try. And so that's going to skip one of the cycles of the puzzle. Yeah, all right, dash, 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 dash. Dash is going to be our first power skill, as I like to call it. And the power skills are really incredible because they end up allowing you to check many pickups around the map, or they are going to drastically decrease the amount of time it takes to check pickups. So here with dash, I'm able to build a huge amount of horizontal velocity, and quite soon actually be able to build a lot of vertical height with it, as long as an enemy is nearby. And we'll talk about that as I get to the trick. All right. Actually, yeah, we can explain it here. So I'm doing another save anywhere here to skip another cutscene, or enter it, excuse me, which is going to save me time. I'm going to open a 2 energy door there by putting 2 energy into the door. And then enter this cutscene once again by using a save anywhere glitch. And then here I have 1 energy, and I now have charge dash, which is something I leveled up in the ability tree. Then if I activate charge dash and cancel it out with a jump input, I'm able to build a ton of height. And this is a very, very cool way for us to be able to sequence break throughout the seed in order to check even more pickups. And that's going to come into play a lot throughout the seed. Unless, of course, I find something like charge jump to make up that difference. All right, so now we're in Grotto. Grotto is one of my favorite areas in the randomizer. Probably one of the most important if you're trying to finish out a randomizer very, very fast, right? So the conditions for being able to check a lot of pickups in Grotto is having blue plant breakage with charge flame or grenade, of which I have both of those. And, or it's going to have something that's going to allow you to build a lot of height. So here I'm just damage boosting in order to get through and check this 1 pickup. It was nothing, no problem. And then destroying these plants, checking some extra pickups. And then I'm just going to come down and check this one and go over to the right side of Moon Grotto, which is going to lead us to our next skill location. So there I was checking to see if I have a map stone to turn in, or if I should just float above that little trigger there for the cutscene. And indeed, I had a map stone to turn in, so I did so. All right. So here we're going to save the game, fall down, and oh no! Okay. These crushers, if they crush me, is instant death. And yes, okay. Oh no! This is going to be our first bit of verticality, which is known as double jump. So double jump is going to allow me to jump 1 additional time while in air. And that actually is quite significant because as you can imagine, the level design itself in Ori is conditioned around these small bits of extra movement we can do. And so here doing this mini boss, I used charge dash to reflect his first attack back into his face, which deals about, I want to say just slightly over 1/3 of his health, maybe around 2/5. And then I used charge flame again to do the same effect. But as you can see with double jump, this is going to allow me to also traverse these slight areas a little bit quicker. Next, what I'm going to do is actually a little bit of backtracking by using double jump and dash in order to be able to check some additional pickups. So here, a little bit of lag, no problem. This game just lags sometimes. So here, there's going to be 4 pickups that I'm going to check. And there's also an additional 2 over here that I'm going to skip just because they take a long time to check. And they are currently not actually in logic because I do not have 4 energy yet. So here, a Mega Health is actually a randomizer specific pickup that is not in the base game itself. And what it does is gives me a temporary battery of health to be able to spend as I please. Next up here, I'm going to check this pickup using double jump to be able to just sneak up there, right? If I didn't have double jump, I would have had to go through this crusher puzzle and then use a rocket jump on one of the enemies to build a ton of height in order to work my way around. But because I just have that tiny bit of extra height I can build from double jump, I can actually end up getting through there. Oh no, oh yeah, okay. So there I was trying to be fancy and that ended up causing me a bit of trouble. So if I'm fast enough there, I can put the keystones in the door and then make it through that instant death crusher in order to check the keystone. And this saves a little bit of time because then I don't have to wait for the door to open. However, I was just a little bit too slow because I hesitated. And because of that, I ended up taking a death. But that's okay, that's just going to happen, especially in a marathon setting. And the estimate more than allows for silly little deaths like that to occur. Cool. All right, so coming over here is going to be our next skill location. This is why Grotto is such a great area to check the high density of pickups for. Just because it gets us another skill location, which is required to finish out the seed, as well as gets me a nice high density of pickups. And Grotto was actually very fruitful, right? Upper Swamp ended up finding us a dash, which builds me a lot of height. And then Grotto had double jump, which is our first form of verticality. So there it didn't look like I did much, but I did a 1/60th of a second timing press in order to put an energy into the 4 energy door, right? Then, because that energy is now stuck in there, I can go fully heal on the energy and then put the energy back in myself. And if I had found 2 energy, I would have been able to go through this little area known as Death Gauntlet a little bit earlier to get access to Moon Grotto earlier. Oh, excellent. Okay, there is our next form of verticality and our second power skill, known as Charge Jump. And Charge Jump is one of the most powerful skill, and this puts me actually in skill go mode for being able to finish out the seed as long as I find some form of left side access. So that is either going to be Stomp or Bash, and then I can finish out the seed. Guaranteed. Oh, there it is. Okay, so there's Valley Teleporter. So the randomizer actually added in these teleporters into the mix in order to be able to unlock the capability to fast travel to certain areas of the map, even if I haven't been able to visit those sections themselves. But as you can see, using Charge Jump here is going to build me a bunch of height and be able to destroy those breakable floors. And this is going to get me access to the next skill tree location, none other than Thordfelt Swamp Stomp Tree. And Stomp Tree may or may not actually have Stomp. That's just the normal skill location that you would find by going over here if you were to play the vanilla or definitive editions of the game. Great. So upcoming here, using Glide when restored, this is going to allow me to float up. And it's a health cell, which is nice because now I am on 7 health. Which is kind of sort of a resource go mode, if you will. Having 7 health basically means I no longer need to find Bash or Glide to finish out a seed. I already have Glide because it was the first skill I found in the game, which is amazing. So I don't need to do a bunch of difficult things in one of the endgame areas known as Sorrow Pass. But if I did not find Glide or Bash, 7 health is a necessity. Great. Okay. So coming over here, I'm doing this little like swimming section, and so this would probably be a location as well as many others where I was just sort of dipping around to read off a bunch of donations, which is a nice thing for the randomizer as I take more safety to do some additional checks that are way away from the skill locations. It's going to open up the host to read some donations. Great. But anyways, I'm just going to keep explaining stuff as they are figuratively doing donations. So here, using a rocket jump to build a ton of height off of that enemy there, it's going to allow me to get up here just a little bit quicker. Just a nice little optimization. Then throwing a grenade at a really specific time is going to allow me to stack these 2 cutscene triggers and allow me to enter the cutscene and activate that tree. So that fade out to black there, usually I don't have control of Ori to be able to get the skill tree until that fade out to black finishes. So here, reflecting that shot because I don't have Stomp is going to allow me to check an additional pickup. That's pretty precise, actually. So getting that second try was pretty cool. Oh, very nice. Spear Light Efficiency. Normally, this is not a pickup that you find in the base game itself. However, it was added into the randomizer, and it increases the amount of experience I get from pickups and enemies by an additional 100%. So right now, that just doubles the experience I'm going to be getting from EXP finds. Cool. Then through here, using a grenade to check a grenade locked pickup. Just a keystone, no problem. That's actually a nice find because I need a lot of keystones. So upcoming here, I have to make a choice. Do I want to go to the left side of the map, or do I want to go into Ginso Tree? So what I'm going to do, because right now I don't have Bash, which is going to be the final power skill and the most powerful skill to find in all of Ori, especially for the randomizer. If I find Bash, I'm 1000% in go mode. Because I don't have Bash yet, I'm going to wait to head to the left side of the map, which is going to contain the end game areas of the seed which usually have a much more difficult sort of time of progressing through. So why Ginso Tree then? Well, Ginso Tree has a lot of pickups, and normally you're only expected to have double jump when you enter this dungeon as well as wall jump. So it's going to allow me to check a lot of additional pickups at a really fast pace. And so going through this first section, it's a very vertical oriented part. And then coming through here, I'm going to try and use charge dash at a really precise time. Oh, just a tiny bit early. And then I wasn't able to get above the shot. If I had nailed that timing perfectly, I would have been able to break that wall and continue on. But instead, I'm just going to do a double charge flame redirect in order to be able to get through that section. No problem. Then using charge jump, I'm going to use 2 times charge dashes in order to be able to go through that final boss twice. And that actually is going to store the damage from charge jump itself, which is a lot. And that is going to kill the boss even before the first cycle ends. Great. Then just checking more pickups because I'm still looking for bash, right? Just in case. And we did not find it, but we got to the skill location and got our second clue because this was tree number 6. But unfortunately, that clue was where the water vein is, but we already have the water vein, as you can see from being in Ginso Tree itself. Oh well. So I'm going to have to visit 9 trees before I know the location of Sunstone itself. So instead what I'm going to do here is, because I don't know where Sunstone is, it could still be in Ginso Tree, right? And having to backtrack all the way through Ginso Tree to get to this upper portion is not great. I'm going to end up making my way all the way up to the waypoint, and then using the waypoint to teleport out to go to the next area. And this also gets me some additional checks once again to find Bash, just in case Bash is in here. Or something like Stomp. Stomp is also another really, really nice skill to have. That actually is going to save me about a minute having found Stomp, so that's a great find. Cool. Then next up coming here, we are going to go into this boss fight, and normally you have to defeat this boss in order to unlock the waypoint as well as Ginso Escape, but I'm just going to skip that and use the waypoint to go through, because in the randomizer, specifically in editions 3.0 and later of the randomizer itself, that wall there is just down, which is really, really cool. Okay, so here I'm going to do a trick where I'm going to stack an instant kill plane with a cutscene. So here I'm in the cutscene, and boom, I just hit the instant kill plane. Now, because the instant kill plane activated and I did not die, the instant kill plane will not activate again until I reload at that game save state. And all because of this, I'm able to go into this area right here, right? Normally in this area, you would just die instantaneously. However, because I stacked those, I can now come over here to these rocks, sneak underneath them, and then use charge jump into them to break them, which triggers this cutscene and unlocks the next skill location, as well as permanently removing that instant kill plane. So that's a really, really cool trick. The caveat to this, though, is that I can't actually save the game. I need the game to forcefully save for myself. And so picking up this skill location here, Feather, is going to save the game for me. Great. Okay. And now that the game is saved, I can just quit out, reload, and I regain the ability to save the game myself by dropping saves. Great. Fantastic. Okay. So because I ended up finding Stomp, I'm actually going to go to my the next fastest location here, which is going to be Light Grenade Tree. And if you never played Definitive Edition, this is in Blackroot Burrows, and so you never would have this area in the Vanilla Edition. But so basically here I'm doing a save anywhere to once again just save the game. Apologies if it's not too easy to see what I'm doing. But here I'm just going to rock jump up the bird to skip a laser puzzle. And then whoops, that was a little too close. And then do a trick in order to jump over the cutscene trigger. And then leveling up abilities is going to save the game for me. And then quitting and reload allows me to skip and or enter the cutscene. In this case, it enters the cutscene because we don't fully end up deleting portions of the cutscene, which are that slow zone there. Hey, all right. So there we got our 8th skill tree location, as well as Bash. Bash is going to be one of the most fascinating skills. Basically allows me to lock onto an enemy, a projectile, or a lantern, and then allows me to shoot myself in one direction and said projectile or enemy in the other direction. And this is massive for the speedrun. We're going to see this come into play immediately coming on into Sorrow Pass, which is going to be our next location to find a skill tree, right? So what's left? We have to go into Sorrow in order to get the skill tree there. We have to find Sunstone in order to get access to the final dungeon itself, which has the final escape. Whoops. And then we also need to get the final skill location located in Misty Woods. The reason why I am going into Sorrow first is because Sorrow has a really nice density of pickups, as well as it's a little bit quicker to get to the skill tree location. And that is going to get tree number 9 for me, which is going to give me the final clue, which is going to tell me where to dig in order to find Sorrow. But here, this skill tree, this skill location here is actually gated by a key door, which requires 4 keystones, but I only have 3. So here I'm going to set up for a glitch by putting keystones into the door, taking a death, and because it returns those keystones into the door as well as refunding those keystones, I end up duplicating those and walking away with 6. So you can think of it as the death, right? The death saved me as having 3 keystones when I dropped the save, but it forgot about the 3 keystones into the door. All right, there we have it. Tree number 9 and the clue for where I am going to find Sunstone, which is going to be in Sorrow Pass itself. So I'm just going to back out immediately from that skill location and check high density, high rate pickups. Oh, okay, I just got very lucky, and it was the first pickup I ended up checking in Sorrow is going to end up being Sunstone itself. And so with Sunstone, and with the capabilities of going to the final skill tree location myself and activating that, and the capability of starting and finishing the final escape, this is something known as Go Mode. So all I'm going to be doing for the rest of the seed is rushing to Misty Woods as fast as I can, and then getting to that skill tree location, activating it, and then leaving. Excellent. So here I don't actually need this pickup, but I kind of messed up some of my movement, so I just checked it anyway. Because there still actually is one more skill on the map, which is going to be none other than Climb. And if I end up finding Climb, it unlocks a glitch known as grenade jumps, and that will save me about 37 seconds in the speedrun itself, if I find it. Great. All right, so coming here in Misty, you'll notice that charge dashing normally actually requires me to spend a full energy in order to be able to use it. However, using a stomp or bashing onto an enemy before charge dash is over refunds that energy overall. Then I can use double jump to cancel out of the stomp and charge dash immediately again. And that's what's happening when you see the boom, 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 right? It builds a lot of horizontal speed. There's a little bit of blind movement as I Alt-R, which is a randomizer specific function, just to get back to the starting area of the game. You can think of it as I mentioned it earlier, a link to the past, where basically just quitting out of a link to the past and then reopening it allows you to go back to Link's house, or the sanctuary, right? The temple. Same thing here with Alt-R. Great. So coming in here, we're going to be going into Horu Fields, which is going to be sort of the end game area leading up to the final dungeon known as Horu. And we're actually going to be skipping the entirety of Mount Horu, right? As I do more fancy movement here. Whoops. And the way we're going to be doing this is right after we enter the dungeon, the game is going to save. Then if I quit the game after it saves and reload, I am going to try and enter this exit doorway here on the first frame that I have control of Ori. if I nail this, which is a 1/60th of a second timing press that is semi-blind, boom, great. It wrong warps me to the very end of the dungeon. And normally I get that within, I want to say, about 5 tries. All right, so now that we've skipped all of the final dungeon, we are going to be coming into here and starting and finishing the final escape. And there are a number of ways to be able to do this final escape with various skill sets. And I am one of the most practiced speedrunners in Ori Randomizer, and so I would be fully prepared to be able to finish the final escape, even in the most of starved circumstances. However, here, this is kind of an ideal scenario where I just have every skill I could possibly want, except for climb. Great. So over here, we're going to use a rocket jump, which is going to be known as fish strats, to be like a silly Twitch chat meme. And then we're going to be heading into the final portion of the run. But with that, the only thing that I have left to do to be able to finish out this run is hold to the right? So there's going to be no more movement with Ori except for walking to the right. So time is going to be coming up in about a minute. Great. That being said, the randomizer has seen some amazing development, especially over the past 3 years since its existence. Major shoutouts to Sigma, as well as other developers such as Aiko and Vuligen, and many other community contributions. I feel like Ori Rando is going to be a very special contribution to GDQ, especially this marathon in particular, with Ori 2 that is going to be coming out in the same week as GDQ submissions itself. And so if Ori 2 was to be accepted, or Ori in the Will of the Wisps as it's formerly known, Ori Randomizer would be the perfect opening for that. Because, as a 2D Metroidvania, this is going to give a nice glimpse at the game itself, as well as some of the cutscenes and the lore, which are going to get the audience more excited and more understanding of Ori 2 as it's introduced. But here we are. Time is going to be coming up. Now. Time. GG. So the estimate for this, I'm probably just going to set for 45 minutes for clues. My average time on an unvetted seed, so a seed where somebody doesn't check it before I run it, like check the pickup locations and stuff like that, is about a 50-minute time. And so a 45-minute would be a nice sort of mid-range seed where, just like in this one, the power skills were kind of buried. I mean, Bash was in a late game location. Charge Jump was hidden in a spot that I wasn't going to be able to check for the first like 20 to 30 minutes of the seed. And then Dash was in the early bit of the seed, but it was kind of out of the way from a skill tree location. And then being able to progress through, showcase off a lot of areas. And I believe that I would be able to do this under 45 minutes in pretty much 95% of seeds that I would get. So it would just be a community contribution to vet the seed ahead of time, and that would guarantee I would be able to finish the seed under estimate. But besides this, Ori Randomizer has had a really strong presence in various marathon scenes, including GDQ hotfix shows, various online marathons such as Hackathon, which is hosted on ESA's official speedrunning channel, and various randomizer tournaments that were featured on none other than the randomizer tournament location, destination itself, twitch.tv/speedgaming. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for checking out my submission video. If you're interested in seeing the credits themselves, we actually have programmed credits, as well as the tournament results, which I have finished in first place and finished in second place in every single randomizer tournament, except for one. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the submission, and thank you so much for watching this video. Cheers.